And welcome everybody to the final yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Louis Song. I am joined by a variety of folks today. I have Ron Caniff, I have Chris Early, I have Michael Quirk, I have Eric Weideke, and I am just coming back from the 5 Reasons Sports watch party at the Biscayne Bay Brewery, who is our proud sponsor. I'm very, very excited. It was an awesome time. I really wish you guys had been able to come with us. So my fiance, thank you for driving us home because I can't do post game from the front seat of the car. So big game, folks. Obviously, the Dolphins won 36-34 again in the final possible minutes. It's very. I remember all the Chargers fans in the comments last season torturing and trolling us over the fact that we got whooped by them. Well, now the shoe is on the other foot, isn't it? Or where are all my Chargers fans who are going to come and ruin my day? They can't today, ladies and gentlemen. They cannot. But before we get too far into it, just want to go ahead and mention, as always, our sponsor for this show is PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you to decide. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, today there was a Dak Prescott free square that they gave you. All you had to do was throw for a yard, and there is still a little bit of time to take advantage of that if you want to try. But the real winners here is anybody who picked the over on Tua and Tyreek Hill, because they both went ballistic today, and something tells me they're going to go ballistic for the rest of the season. There's just no stopping that connection. So if you want to get in on that, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE. They will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Get this promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and the Prize Picks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. And of course, just a big, once again, big thank you to Biscayne Bay Brewing here in downtown Miami. It was an awesome time. They gave us a free beer just for showing up and saying, hey, we're with 5 Reasons. It was an amazing time all around. Big thanks to them. Biscayne Bay Brewery, proud sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. All right, so we've already got comments in here. Night Volt Ron wants to talk to you, Ron. I think he wants to. I think he was calling you out, a non-believer of the Miami Dolphins.
Definitely.
Actually,
I'll take it. I'll eat the crow. Yum 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 yum. Eat it all day. We won.
Go ahead.
I'm
happy.
happy.
Go ahead, Ron. You get to go first because you were the one you were the one on Pulse who said that the Dolphins were going to lose this one. So I'll go ahead and let you go first.
I thought we'd lose. I had picked 22-19. I thought it'd be a close but a defensive battle, and I really just didn't. Especially with them getting back Derwin James and Bosa, who they didn't have last year. Really thought that we'd struggle against their defense. And I mean, let's be honest, we did not struggle against their defense. And if it wasn't for that fumble there inside the 10 at the very beginning of the game, I mean, it might have not been even as close. We probably would have put 40 plus up on them because they really, for the most part, could not stop us. Now, we didn't stop them very well on the ground, but when once Herbert was forced to throw, we saw our defense like really come. I mean, we only made really 2 defensive plays the whole game, right? Kohu had that big sack right there at the goal line. They kick a real short punt, 1 play, Tyreek Hill touchdown, and then the 2 big sacks at the end. I mean, that was it. I mean, those were the play, but they made the plays they needed to make when they needed to make them. So, kudos, I guess, to the defense. I got a lot of work to do, but kudos to the offense because they just couldn't be stopped. And I will gladly eat that crow. I'm happy to eat it because I am a Dolphins fan through and through. Happy to be wrong. You're on mute there, Louis.
Still muted, Louis.
I apologize. I'm doing
no, you're fine.
For once. So Duke, didn't you pick the Dolphins to win this one with me?
I did. I picked from 24-20.
So what were your thoughts? You guys were both expecting a defensive showdown, and I was like, no, this is going to be punch for punch, touchdown for touchdown type of thing.
Well, yeah, I was expecting our defense. I was expecting them to throw the ball a little more than what they did. They didn't really have to, but that's what I was expecting. And with our offensive line and their defensive line, I thought our interior could handle their interior, but I was very nervous about the 2 edge rushers. And it did not pan out that way. Their defense was non-existent. Our defense was non-existent. I mean, they each had big moments, but for the most part, either offense could do what they wanted to do with, I about to say San Diego, with them doing it on the ground and Miami doing it through the air. So.
Now, Michael and Eric, you've been around, but you haven't really done much since last season. So I want to give you guys a chance to really get your thoughts out, because we've watched all training camp, we've watched all preseason, we've been trying to figure out what exactly it is that this team is going to do. So, Mike, I'm going to go with you first. First impressions of this Dolphins team in the regular season. It's something for sure.
Well, the first thing that stands out to me is before last season, I said the most important thing for the Dolphins is to know whether or not Tua's the guy. And through his play, we saw that he very well could be the guy. But through some unfortunate injury circumstances, you still weren't confident with the extension. So going into this year, you're thinking, how confident can he be? We saw him throw down the field. He led the NFL in air yards per attempt and completion last year, way ahead of a lot of guys who get a lot of credit for doing such things. And you saw him today remarkably confident in the pocket. His eyes were always downfield. I was joking on Twitter that never find someone who hates you as much as Tua hates checking down today, because his eyes were continually upfield. His pocket presence was absolutely unbelievable. You saw Tua take a monstrous step forward last year under Mike McDaniel, and you saw him take yet another huge step today. So that's on the positive end of things. And of course, the offensive line, sometimes that pocket did collapse, gave up 0 sacks, but there were some positive takeaways from there today, particularly on the interior that didn't include snaps. On the negative side, of course, giving up nearly 6 yards a carry over 40 carries. That's a little troublesome. That concerns me. I mean, holding Justin Herbert to 228 passing yards and sacking him 3 times, and Jalen Phillips was abusing that off. I know he didn't get home until the end, but he was continually in the backfield, continually chasing Herbert, and he was hearing footsteps. So I'd like to see the run defense get better, but I'm not going to lament winning a game on the road against a team who's going to be in playoff contention.
And Eric, your turn, my friend. So if you were like me and everybody else at the Biscayne Bay Brewery today, you were probably like tearing your hair out waiting to see how this game was going to end.
Absolutely. No. As soon as I'll be the first one to admit, as soon as Jason Sanders missed the extra point, I was convinced we were doing this post-game show. 37-36 Chargers win. And you know what? Non-believer, whatever. Most people felt that way. I'll just say that. But yeah, just to echo everything that was said, we came into this game with so much concern about, oh my God, Armstead is out. Is the offensive line going to be able to hold and keep Tua upright against this Chargers defense? And they answered the bell and then some. Realistically, I mean, to go through this game without any sacks whatsoever. And then on top of that, a lot of that was schematic because of what the Dolphins do in getting the ball out so quickly. But the other thing that I noticed that Tua's done much better than last year, and it's something that we talked. I heard somebody talk about before we went live, was the off-schedule throws. You get Tua coming out of the pocket. Before, he looked really uncomfortable outside the structure of the play, but today, you saw, especially on that last drive, you're going 3rd and 15 to Braxton Berrios outside of the pocket, extending, making things happen. And then you're going on arguably one of the biggest plays of the game. You have Tua stepping up through the pocket on the dead run, throw inside the does it have the intestinal fortitude? I do not have the intestinal fortitude. I am been abused by the Dolphins, so I have plenty of trauma there. But overall, throw deep to Tyreek on the run. Now, granted, I do want to touch on the defense. You do have to talk about it. The Dolphins today looked a lot like just about every team that's tried to replicate the Fangio defense, and that they can't stop the run. And that's kind of been the bugaboo for all the teams that try to do what Fangio does, is that they have issues stopping the run as well. So I'm really hoping that it's so just, hey, listen, this is week 1. We're still trying to implement this, right, perfect it. And to be fair, it's a very good offense on the other side. There's now, granted, you don't expect them to run for 200 plus when they have Justin Herbert on that side. But the defense answered the call when necessary. You know, I was screaming for Vic Fangio to dial up a blitz every once in a while. Lo and behold, last if he does it, you know, when they need it, right on time, and they win the game. This is probably, you know, I hate to say it for 1-0. It was definitely one of the biggest. I think we'll look back at this one and say this might have been one of the biggest wins of the season, even at 1-0. We're going to feel that way about after every win, I'm sure. But I think you can really say that confidently about this one.
No, this was probably one of Tua's biggest performances I've ever seen. And that's saying something considering what we saw against the Baltimore Ravens, what we saw against the Detroit Lions last year. We saw a lot from Tua Tagovailoa. What was his final stat line? Does anybody have like the box score pulled up?
I got it right here. It's
Yep.
28 of 45 for 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and then the fumble. So obviously that's
okay. Well, the fumble, you know,
good.
it's
The fumble at the snap there at the
David,
exchange.
don't worry. My fiance is driving in the front seat, so I am very grateful to Holly for stepping up and helping this show happen. Because without her, I would not be able to do what I do. So
That's awesome. I have to say, I just want to say this so we can just talk about it right now. It's week 1. Tua instantly put himself in the top, back where he was right before the San Fran game, in the top of the MVP conversation. Right away, out of the gate, week 1, he's right there. That's not some kind of homery Miami Dolphin stuff. That's facts right there. That is pure facts. He instantly did. He had the best performance of any quarterback, save, you know, we still have 2 games left so far that I could see. I didn't watch all the games, but statistically, obviously, he had the best day. And he just made some phenomenal throws. He was so on target with, I mean, we always are used to him being on target, but he was on target in some ways that, I mean, you could see he made the jump. He's made that jump in the second year of this offense. What you guys were trying to tell me, and I wanted to not believe and was nervous about. And Lewis, even you were a little nervous about this offense. I think what it was interesting, though, is that they spent all offseason in training camp and practices and joint practices and preseason convincing us that they were going to be running we're going to run the heck out of the ball. We're going to throw these short passes with lots of yak. And what did they do? They go in there and just do more of what they did last year, but do it better. Honestly, they did it. They did it a lot better, threw in some new wrinkles, some new types of throws. They ran it a little at first, but then they just went to McDaniel style. We're just going to run the heck out of this ball. So I don't know if anybody, Chris, if you noticed that. I see Lewis is having maybe some connection issues, but Chris, I don't know if you had noticed that they really didn't do possibly on offense what we were kind of quote unquote maybe promised or had convinced ourselves they were going to do.
Yeah, I was expecting. I wanted more runs, and they started to a little bit in the second half, and it just lost its effectiveness. In the first half, when they ran the ball, they averaged like 5.6 yards a carry, and that includes I think one of those fumbles that Tua had for 0 yards. So even with that attempt for 0 yards, they were still averaging 5.6 yards per carry. And in the second half, it just kind of fell apart. And to go along with the way Tua played, you know, we look at that performance in Baltimore last year as kind of his coming out party. And the stats were great. But if you recall, the first half of that game, he was not that good. He stepped up big in the second half.
Yeah, he'd thrown 2 picks in the first half of that game too.
This game, Tua was in control from the jump. So
yeah,
he did not look panicky. He did not look lost. It didn't look like he was being confused. He looked like, I know where I'm going with the ball. And really, the interception was probably just a bad decision. And he is an aggressive thrower, so you're going to have to live with that. But it ended up being basically a punt on 3rd down, so who cares? And one other thing I want to hit on Eric's point, I'll give some credit to the Chargers. Their offensive line is maybe top 5 in the NFL.
Yeah,
maybe one of the best that we'll face this year. I know we face the Eagles, and they have probably the best offensive line. But this is a team with a very good left tackle who's he's basically an island out there. Trey Pipkins, they paid a big contract to, a reasonably big contract to this offseason, and he held his own pretty much. I mean, going against Jalen Phillips is going to going to test you, and they did give him some tight end help a lot, but they came out with a plan to run the ball, and they're very good. So I expect to see them do that a lot to a lot of other teams, even other good defensive lines like we have. So I don't want to just, as mad as we are and in the heat of the moment talking about the run defense, I want to give credit to their offensive line. Their offensive line is very, very good. And it wasn't until they absolutely had to pass that Miami was able to tee off on them. And we couldn't really do that the whole game, because if we did, they would just run the ball down our throats again. So hats off to them for that.
I feel like a lot of us, and I don't know if you guys can still hear me because I had to switch to my phone. My laptop finally kicked the bucket.
We can hear you.
But just the simple fact, like, I was frustrated. Everybody at the brewery was frustrated watching that run defense. Like, it seemed like we kept joking about how Austin Eckler is the entire Chargers offense, but it's not a lie. Austin Eckler was basically the entire Chargers offense for the entire game. And so once they actually had to start throwing the football, things started to go sour for them. Like, first it was that last drive really was, I guess, I don't want to be disrespectful to Arjun, who came onto my show to do behind enemy lines, but he basically disagreed with me in that Justin Herbert isn't clutch in the fourth quarter. But Justin Herbert wasn't clutch in the fourth quarter. He did that intentional ground. Like, and I'll give Mike McDaniel this. He screamed, he shouted, and he hollered that it should have been intentional grounding, and he got it. So I'll give him kudos for that. He didn't let it slide. But even then, the fact that Herbert did that, just didn't throw it to anybody. And then after that, he just kind of fell apart. Like, the 2 sacks that ended the game, absolutely beautiful. Zach Sealer earning his money. Jalen Phillips getting ready to earn his money. I don't know what it was. I guess we kind of already knew that the Vic Fangio defense was much more suited for stopping the pass than stopping the run. And I do have concerns going forward. I need to see them actually stop some runs before I'm going to be able to take an easier breath, because I feel like the Chargers should not have made it this close. Like, I know that they're a talented team. Believe me, I understand. Justin Herbert is a very talented quarterback. I'm not going to take that away from him. And I understand the Dolphins. I'm very happy that they won. I am concerned about the run defense. Believe me, I'm concerned about the run defense. I need to see them actually make some stops here, because Christian Wilkins and them, like you guys mentioned, they didn't really tee off on them until after they started throwing the football. So what happens if they decided not to? If they decided not to throw the football, what would have happened? Would Austin Eckler have run them all the way to where they need to go? That's my concern.
I think you have to consider the game plan as well. I mean, you can't load the box with Justin Herbert because he's going to, if you do, he can make you pay downfield. That's not going to happen against a lot of other teams. So I think in the upcoming weeks, we're going to see the run defense against teams that probably will run the ball more, like New England, step up a little more, simply because it will be game planned for, and they're not worried about that quarterback, making them pay for playing a little more in the box. So it was just, they came out to say, you're going to have light boxes against our offense. We're going to run the ball. And if you can stop it and make us throw, great. And if you can't, we're going to keep doing it. And we weren't able to stop it. So I think it will naturally work its way out. It was just, it's just reaction to what we saw. But it is a concern. But particularly at the zero tech position, there's a lot of issues there, I think. So I'm still going on. I'm still going to say I want them to look at Sue and Linval Joseph and a couple of those guys. So.
Well, I feel like Akeem Hicks is going to be the first one they look at if they look at anybody at this point, because he's another Vic Fangio prophet, so to speak.
Yeah, he might be on the plane on the way back.
All right, so now I want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the offense, because that was really the star of the show. For all the talk that we've had about how we were concerned, I was concerned. I don't know. Ron wasn't concerned. I know Ron wasn't concerned. I was concerned the offense might be taking a step back, but that's only because I have burned Dolphin syndrome. What is it? Battered Dolphin syndrome or something like that?
Yeah, PTSD from being a Dolphins fan.
Dolphins PTSD. And they're thinking that, okay, the offense is going to take a step back. I still clench my butt every time Tua throws the ball in the middle of the field. So that's the kind of feelings that I have. But if there's one thing I feel like, at this point, if there's nothing to be concerned about, it's probably the offense. Although I will say this, Parrish Stevens just brought up an interesting point when the chat, who pulled it up? I think it was Ron, you pulled it up, asking where was Jalen Waddle the whole game? Acting as a distraction for Tyreek Hill, I guess, because I said it on Twitter, and I honestly believe it at this point. There is no more dangerous duo in the entire NFL than Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. Not even Patrick Mahomes was able to get the ball as effectively to Tyreek than Tua is. So make of that what you will, and I'm willing to argue with anybody who thinks otherwise. There is no better wide receiver quarterback duo than Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. Mike, Eric, I don't know if you guys want to chime in. What your thoughts are on that?
So, and I wanted to hop back onto the defense thing because I think that there's an interesting question to be asked here. So when it comes to the defense kind of allowing the Chargers to run all over, obviously you don't want to do it to the tune of 240 plus yards or whatever ridiculous amount of rushing yards they gave up. But what extent of this do you think might have been do everybody here, and this is just general question to everyone, how much of it was we want to take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands? So if the Chargers are going to kill us with Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler on the ground, we'll take that. Because personally, I can't imagine going into New England and being so afraid of Mac Jones, for example, next week that you're going to let the Patriots run for 200 plus.
They only ran for 78 today on the Eagles. They threw for 300 yards, though. Strangely, they had almost 400 yards of offense on Philly today, but it was mostly through the air. Strange, but just how it worked.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you, Eric, but part of me thinks that we want to talk about PTSD. I mean, it's clear that the Chargers have PTSD about what happened with them against Jacksonville. That's because they lost control of the game. And what's the number one way you can control a game? Control the clock, keep it on the ground, keep pounding the ball, keep pounding the rock. But then there is that question. I mean, how many times are the national media going to sit there and watch Justin Herbert just fall apart at the end of games and not eventually call it out? I mean, they don't want to call it out on this guy, but it's clear that he's got an elite arm. So he has elite arm talent, but he is not an elite quarterback.
He's also a tall, strong, blonde hair, blue eye, all-American boy who's not.
I will still put
he can do no wrong.
As a quarterback, not as a physical specimen of a quarterback, but as playing the position of quarterback, I will put Tua over Herbert at this point. I just think that people need to wake up on that Tua is the better quarterback. No, he's not as physically talented. Clearly not. But he does play the position of quarterback better than Justin Herbert does. And even the commentators were sitting there saying, well, they've got Chargers have two great wide receivers too, and Allen and Williams, but they wanted to run the ball and they wanted to use Eckler, and it worked. They scored a lot of points, but the Dolphins can just score so quick. And eventually Herbert was going to have to throw the ball. He eventually was going to have to throw the ball. Simple as that.
Yep, and that's what happened.
Michael, do you want to?
Yeah, I was going to say that's what happened. They didn't. They had to throw the ball, and it collapsed. We saw Thursday night with Mahomes, him throwing to guys that they're not top of the line, and kind of what happened there. There's no excuses for Herbert in this one. He had everybody at his disposal. Had the entire team, just like Miami did. They had in Miami's defense, if you want to call it an excuse, they didn't have their Pro Bowl left tackle and was starting a backup. So,
by the way, just real quick, shout out to Kendall Lamb for doing a fantastic job all game. Nope, Tua did not get sacked. Even with Austin Jackson and Isaiah Wynn and all that stuff, Tua did not get sacked. Not once.
Marcel Louis Jacques, I think he's the Dolphins reporter for ESPN. He tweeted out, they allowed 13 pressures. Tua was 7 for 13 for 120 yards on those pressures, but not a single sack. So Tua's going to make an offensive line look better because he has good pocket awareness, good pocket movement. But yeah, those guys were invisible. So I mean, I agree with you, Ron. There's no excuses. It's not like, well, he has all these guys hurt. He's not playing. You had your starting defense out there. You had your starting offense out there. You ran the ball like champions.
But that was it.
Yeah, that was it. So
that was it. The Chargers ran the ball well today.
And meanwhile, the guy on the other side who is maligned, being replaced, one hit away from retirement, put up 466 yards and 3 touchdowns on you, and was clutch. You know?
Absolutely clutch.
Will it be on First Take or whatever that is in the morning? No.
It better. No. It better.
Some of those throws,
that was easily the best game of the day. That's got to be on.
Yeah. Those, and some of those throws were just highlight throws from Tua. They were just straight up ESPN highlight throws from Tua. They will be on national media.
Are we calling Tua a social media QB all of a sudden?
Yeah, there you have.
Okay, you can be a social media QB and still be good, though. That's the thing.
There is one negative outcome from Tua's game, and that's going to be on Steve Ross's wallet.
Yeah, that's good.
Because after seeing what Joe got and what Herbert got, if he keeps playing like that, we're talking, $60 million a year.
Oh my God!
Yeah, good work if you get it.
But you know what? We got to give credit to this. I'm sure you agree with me on this, Michael. We got to give credit to Tyreek Hill because he, just like Tua took over the game, it wasn't a one-man show. Tua wasn't throwing to everybody on the field, unless it's Durham Smythe. He loved the target Smythe today. But it's just him and Tyreek Hill, man. Tyreek Hill over 200 yards receiving. That's nuts. He's already 10% of the way there for that 2,000 yard for that 2,000 yard mark. So what are your thoughts on this, Mike? This offense was unbelievable.
Well, what you said earlier in the show about, is there a better connection or a more dangerous tandem than Tua to Tyreek? And you have a pretty compelling exhibit A in this game. Because not only did they have the chemistry together where Tyreek knows when Tua's coming to him, and he knows when to look up for the football. But when you have a quarterback who can anticipate like Tua does, when you have a really well drawn up offense. I mean, we saw River Craycraft running wild. We saw Durham Smythe get a couple catches. We saw Braxton Berrios put himself in positions. So when you have Tua able to throw guys open in addition to those anticipation throws, and then you have that elite weapon in Tyreek Hill, who still has the game-breaking speed, who still has some of the best feet in football, as an elite route runner, is elite when the play breaks down. And if you're an opposing defense and you're going over the tape of that throw on that final drive, when Tua steps up in that collapsing pocket and throws running forward and hits Tyreek in stride deep down the field, what do? What do you say we need to do to stop that? Because when you have Tyreek who can beat you deep, and you say, okay, we're going to try and get him with a safety. One, good luck. And two, like we were talking about with Waddle, if you can beat the defense consistently deep with that guy who there's no one else like him in the league, then the Dolphins will pick you apart underneath. They really can. So Tyreek is all important to this offense, both for what he produces, and 11 catches for 215 and 2 touchdowns today, and also what he does for every single other guy, because you can't take your eyes off of him. That's something that makes the Dolphins a Super Bowl contender. As much as forever you want to say that wide receivers were a candy position, we've obviously seen that's now a bread and butter. That's how you win in this NFL, is with a guy like him. We've seen it before with the Chiefs. We may see it now with the Dolphins.
And I want to go ahead and point out to everybody as well, Braxton Berrios, like I had made comments that it felt like the third wide receiver competition was underwhelming. I felt like it wasn't all that special. Nobody was doing anything to sit out. And then we find out Cedric Wilson ended up being inactive. So I thought to myself, wow, they really don't particularly care about this position right now, aside from Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Braxton Berrios came up huge today in very, very key moments. So I honestly was not expecting that, nor did I expect Eric Ezukanma to be as effective as he was in the limited play time he got running the football. Eric Ezukanma is a running back playing wide receiver, apparently, because this guy is everywhere.
Yeah, for how many years? Well, I guess since last year, or maybe the year before last, everybody's like, who's going to be the Dolphins' Debo Samuel. Well, they lined Ezukama up in the backfield. So there we go.
Yeah, I got to give that time to kind of manifest, see what happens. But Craycraft, he was in there.
Yep.
He was doing his thing. And another guy, it's funny on Pulse of Fins Nation that we do Tuesday, 7:30, just saying, that we do, me, Chris, and Lewis, who just disappeared. Maybe he lost his phone battery too there. Another guy that we kept saying, oh man, this guy's just there to block, blah, blah, blah. They were going to Smythe like a lot in the first half. And I thought that was smart because they wanted to tell the Chargers, look, you're not going to just be able to not have to account for Smythe. Like if you're going to try to not account for him because you don't think he's really a threat, then I'm going to start throwing the ball to him a lot. So I thought that was smart to do. Now I'm sure that the Chargers must have adjusted to that in the second half because you didn't really see much from them in the second half that I remember. And then they just started tossing it. And I will assume that maybe the Chargers kind of picked their poison and said, okay, well, Tyreek's going to get his, so let's just try and bracket Waddle and keep him from going crazy too on us. And I mean, it just still didn't work though. That's the thing. There's just too many talented guys on the offense. And A-Chain, who I think eventually will get going. I mean, he wasn't even active today. That's a guy that we're going to eventually see get in there and they're going to start using in different ways. And he wasn't even active. So there's a lot more that can happen. There was one really cool play. I don't know if you guys noticed this. It might have been on the final touchdown drive. I think it was, where you saw Ahmed run a wheel route and then you saw Ingold just run out into the flat. And I thought that was I'd never seen a play like that before. Like that's the first time I'd ever even noticed a team do a play like that. I thought that was kind of original as well. And I think there's just going to be a lot more wrinkles from this offense. And we saw Easy. He got one run out of the backfield, right? Towards the beginning of the game. He had he had two. Yeah, you're going to see more of that. You didn't see Waddle take any of that type of stuff. You didn't see Hill. I mean, I feel like they did this only unleashing maybe 30-40% of the playbook that they could, because we've seen lots of stuff from them and know lots of other things that they can do that they didn't even have to in this game. And the Chargers are a really good defense, guys. I mean, they are an extremely talented defense. And they just could not stop Miami in this game under any circumstances. And, Ronaldo Hill, I think maybe we got to give some credit that he helped McDaniel prepare for this game. I think he probably did. We don't know the ins and outs and we're not behind the scenes, but I got to imagine he helped McDaniel prepare as well. I mean, what do you think, Eric?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I brought that up on the Prize Pick show this morning, talking about Ronaldo Hill and kind of because he was the assistant D coordinator last year, D-backs coach over in LA. He came over in the offseason. Yeah, I think McDaniel, the adjustments that were made from last year to this year, it's kind of night and day against this Chargers defense. I mean, I just, so much of what they unleashed is just really tantalizing, kind of just little nuggets that they're throwing out here that you kind of start to see the potential of guys. I mean, I love that they actually used Eric Ezukam, and it looked a lot like what we saw in the preseason. It looked exactly like what we saw out of him in the preseason. He looked every bit as explosive against actual NFL talent as he did against 2s and 3s in the preseason, even in just the 2 carries that he got. And I agree on the defense that it didn't look great to give up 30 points, a lot of 3rd and longs. But there's one guy on the defense that I want to give a shout out to today. Aside from a few guys that had a good day on defense, not to say that only one guy had a good day, but there's a few guys that you're looking at this year going into the season as taking that next jump, going from maybe Pro Bowl caliber to All Pro. You looked at Jalen Phillips. How about Javon Holland today? I mean, he was everywhere.
Yeah, he was.
The field. Every time there was a tackle, number 8's getting up off the ground. He's a guy that's really, I think, taken the next step today into becoming that All Pro level at safety.
I was looking at Kader Kohu today.
Yeah.
Of course, you have the that huge sack and so forth, but he was fighting all game long, and not once did you feel like he was a guy that they were specifically targeting, which is rare because you have a guy like Xavier Howard on the other side, and as we all know, Jalen Ramsey's out. But I mean, it was Xavier Howard who had a couple defensive penalties there that were pretty inexcusable on his end. But Kader Kohu, he was, whether he was blitzing, whether he was in zone, whether he was in man, he was exactly what you needed from him today. I thought that was really encouraging for a second-year undrafted guy who's going up against the Chargers offense, and he holds his own in week 1. That has to be encouraging.
I'm back, folks. Sorry about that.
Maybe he's back. I don't know. Kind of frozen for a second. I don't know how long we go on the after show because I haven't done one since last year.
It usually goes about an hour, especially for victories.
Oh, okay.
For victories,
all right, because I was going to say,
I
just wanted to bring. I keep on wanting to do this. I think maybe we just need. I want to bring it back to Tua again and how amazing he was in this game. I know it sounds real homer, but hey, it's all Dolphins fans watching anyway.
Yep.
If you want me to nitpick a little bit, he was making me nervous with a lot of those decisions he was making, throwing in the triple coverage all the time. And that one pick that he threw was like, who was he throwing the ball to exactly?
He's not afraid to throw the ball. He's not afraid to throw these passes. That's how he gets these big throws complete because he's not afraid. But man, I can't get out of my mind that one that he threw to Tyreek Hill, that bomb that he had to pretty much just as the pocket collapsed, he ran forward and he just gunned it. And then he gunned that one on the sideline for about 15 yards as he was running. I don't remember who he threw that to. I think it was Barrios, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And man, it's just so many great throws in this game, besides just the normal good throws that we see from Tua in general that we're just so used to seeing we don't think about. We saw some. I love the off-schedule stuff because that's the thing where I've always said last year I was always on here. Don't do anything off-schedule, Tua. You're terrible at it. Don't do it. Now I'm not as nervous just from this game because I just saw him do some awesome, amazing things. It was just great, man. It was great to see. It was just fantastic, and guy catches so much flack from so many people. A lot of it's from Dolphins fans. Most of it's from national media, haters and whatnot that just insist that he's garbage and want to be right so bad. I don't know. He's about to put them all to rest, but he had 2 terrible, terrible games last year. And one of those 2 terrible games was against this team. So it wasn't like we're sitting there and talking this up like he was playing Houston again or something. Like this was a serious defense. This was a real defense. And they had a lot of time to try and prepare for Tua. And I mean, that offense was doing what it did last year, throwing deep middle to throwing the crossers, throwing bombs down the field. It might be, especially with Kelsey out in Kansas City. I got to feel like this is the most exciting and explosive and quick triggered offense in the league right now. I won't say it's the number 1 offense, but it's the most exciting to watch. That's for sure. I would think as an NFL fan, this is an offense that I'd want to see. I mean, it's just highlight after highlight after highlight from these guys.
Also, I want to just take a quick note, dude, before sorry to cut you off. There was a report. David Fioronez is actually putting it out there. So people were asking where was Jalen Waddle all game. According to Fioronez, Mike McDaniel's on the podium saying that the reason Waddle wasn't playing more is because he was playing through some significant pain. So he was in and out throughout the rest of that game. So that makes a lot of sense why they were giving Ezukanma snaps, why they were giving Barrios snaps, and why Tyreek was getting so much more attention than anybody else. So Jalen Waddle wasn't even in the game, and I guess we just didn't notice at the time. So I'll have to rewatch the game eventually just to kind of figure out, okay, how often was Waddle actually even on the field to begin with, and how did he look while he was out there? Aside from that one play, I don't even remember Jalen Waddle doing much of anything. So maybe that was it. Maybe that was what fried him. Maybe he's more hurt than we let on.
4 catches for 78, which is
yeah, bad game. 4 catches for 78, and he looked good when he was on the field. I mean, he was, like similar to Tyreek. And Tyreek has taught that guy. I mean, he was already a great route runner. He has taught him how to be an even better route runner. You can see some similarities in the way they break off their routes and just they just leave the defense just smoked. They just leave those defensive backs like it just all of a sudden it looks like they're covered, and then there's 5, 6, 7 yards of separation. This way, that way. It's both of them, Tyreek and Waddle. They're both fantastic like that. So we did that really down one of our 2 wide receivers in essence. I mean, it wasn't the number one receiver, but
Even Tyreek was out for a while, man. Like he's huffing and puffing. He's had to get fluids over and over again. Like you could tell he was wiped out.
Absolutely. And as a guy who's older and remembers the Marino days, and this is going to sound funny, I mean, Tua had a great game, but it's I don't have the same feeling like I had with the Baltimore game because that was the first time I saw him do it. Now I'm just like, yeah, 450 yards. Like I remember when Marino threw for 400 yards. I was like, yeah, Marino threw for 400 yards again. It was a cool game. You know, I'd seen him do it so many times. I understand that Tua has not thrown for 400 yards a bunch of times, but I'm like, yeah, 400 something yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, Tua had a Tua game. You know, I know it's
have we
not
reached
quite
that point that's the norm.
And yeah, I'm not like going nuts over it. It was a fantastic game, but we know now this guy has had it in him. We've known that he's had it in him, and he's going to continue to do that as long as he stays healthy. I mean, this is going to be the Dolphins' offense most of the time. You know, once in a while you're going to see a defense kind of figure something out for a game, like we saw some last year, but mostly. You know, we're going to see. Now, we hadn't seen Tua play real football since the Green Bay game, but let's keep in mind that first half of that Green Bay game last year, before he got that concussion, he was lighting up the Packers, and they had a pretty good defense. So kind of picks up where he left off before his last concussion and when he was out for the season last year.
Yeah. Also, I need to bring this up because if there's anything besides the run defense, if there's anything I have to nitpick about. So Paris Stevens talking about that field goal before the half was huge. Yes, it was. It was brilliant by Mike McDaniel to just go ahead and say, screw it. Let's go for it and see what happens. And
wasn't it 12 seconds, right?
It was 12 seconds.
12 seconds left at the 25-yard line. I mean, I thought, man,
the clock had ticked down to 0, and then they got called for PI, which gave Jason Sanders that chance. But Jason Sanders is going to give me an aneurysm sometime this season. He almost gave me one today. Missing
we wouldn't be
point.
If he didn't miss that extra point, we wouldn't even be. We would say Sanders is back. He had clutch kicks. He had clutch kicks from field goals. He just missed the extra point. Which
the one that's supposed to be the gimme.
Yeah, I know. But he did have he did have some good kicks today. I mean, we got to give him credit for that as well. The extra point, that's no good. But
does Justin Tucker miss extra points?
No, he doesn't. But Jason Sanders isn't Justin Tucker,
right?
You know what? Tua is closer to Patrick Mahomes than Jason Sanders is to Justin Tucker. I'm just gonna say it is probably true.
I'm going to look for Jason Sanders' contract, and I'm going to find the nearest out. I'm sick of
next season.
Brent Grablachoff, come and smack your guy upside the head. I swear, because what after you gone, Jason Sanders went with you. Whoever this is an imposter. So I'm fried from the Jason Sanders. When he missed that extra kick, we went from up here at the brewery to way down here almost instantaneously. We were like,
I thought we were
my
screwed,
God,
man.
the game was over.
I was like Eric said, I thought we were going to be coming on here with a 30, what would we have lost?
36.
Yeah, I thought that's what was going to happen too. But man, the defense really stepped up when they had to. And Justin Herbert did Justin Herbert things in the fourth quarter, which was good for us.
Just imagine you're in the AFC Championship game. It's Miami at Kansas City. Kansas City's up 30-28, 3 seconds left, and here comes Jason Sanders with a 40-yarder. That's a terrifying thing to think of.
It is. It makes me nervous.
That's exactly the word I was thinking of. Oh, my God, that's terrifying. Jason Sanders to win the game.
Halloween's around the corner. Just think about Jason Sanders in a big spot.
Boo.
That's boo worthy. All right. All right. So I want to just go over here real quick, the box score. And I know that we're trying to talk about, I know that Mike McDaniel's at the podium talking about stuff like that. I just want to bring up real quick, once again, 0 sacks. So what did you guys think of the offensive line as a whole? Because we were looking at these guys thinking, oh, my God, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa is going to absolutely tear these guys to shreds. Even Austin Jackson, I did not have to call his name today. Not even for a penalty. There was no false start. There was no holding, at least not on him. In fact, I would almost venture to say the one who was most noticeable was Connor Williams, and that was because snap issues. One of them was on Tua. I'm not putting everything on Williams. Tua should have caught that last one that went errant. But Connor, we want to talk about offensive line. Kendall Lamb, solid. Austin Jackson, at least on paper. I haven't rewatched it. I haven't seen everything that happened, but as far as I can tell, solid. No problems here. No complaints from me. And who was he facing most of the time? Like,
Joey
I don't
Bosa.
think, was it Joey Bosa was almost the whole time for Austin Jackson?
Yeah, like pretty much the whole time.
So what more can you ask for?
But I gotta say, Butch Berry, man. Like, I mean, what else are we gonna? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of little things that go into it. Everybody puts the work in, this, that, the other. Butch Berry, man. The guy, the offensive line coach, he clearly is, been worth bringing him in. And it was such a trashed move by everybody outside of Miami, especially Denver people. And we saw Ben Albright had his smart ass things to say about it. Clearly, it's had a positive effect on this O-line, because we probably came into this game extremely concerned. I know I did. And we didn't even have TA. It wasn't even honestly even noticeable that we didn't have Armstead. It just really wasn't. I think the issue with not running the ball was McDaniel just didn't run the ball a lot. He had the same play calling tendencies he did last year. He just couldn't break away from it for whatever reason. I don't know if that's matchup based or the guy just can't run the ball. But man,
I don't think it's matchup based. I think
he just can't make himself run the ball.
He can't do it. He can't do it.
Matt and Mike.
Hey, man. At the same time, when your quarterback's playing like he was playing, don't take the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, that's a good point. Two was on fire. He was hot. He was definitely the hot hand for sure.
I mean, the offensive line is. I mean, no offensive line is going to be perfect, so there's going to be pressures and stuff. But I think what most fans were expecting was just Tua under constant pressure each and every play, just not being able to do anything because those guys are so bad. And they look like a regular offensive line out there, which is, let's just admit it, that's an improvement. So, Lewis, you're talking about the box score. I want to hit on a point. Here's some interesting stats. We talked about on the Pulse about how I think Ron and I had picked the running backs to be more of a factor in the passing game because we're going to see a lot of checkdowns.
Nah.
The backfield saw 7 out of the 40. It's got here listed 44 targets. Okay. Raheem Mostert had the lowest yards per catch at 6.5. You know who was second?
Alec Ingold.
River Craycraft at 13.3.
Well,
so the second lowest guy had 13.3 yards per catch. Everybody else, Alec Ingold was 17, Braxton Berrios was 14, Durham Smythe 14.7, and Hill and Waddle both 19.5. So not only did we take it to the Chargers, we did it throwing the ball ridiculously far down the field.
Just like we were always meant to do, I guess.
To a 10.4 yards per attempt. That's astounding considering he threw 45 times.
That's nuts.
Hey,
45 times over 10 yards per attempt. That's crazy.
Can y'all do me a favor? Just to play devil's advocate, I want to do something real quick. Can y'all pull up the stats from last year's game so we can compare? Because we had talked about because we're talking about. Just because we talked about how, Justin Herbert had all these numbers, but they weren't that impressive. I just want to remind myself what the numbers were for that game because we're talking about Tua, because Tua threw the ball all day. He threw it all day long, and we were saying how incredible it is. But I just want to remind everybody what Justin Herbert's was. So
so Justin Herbert last year, 39 of 51 for 367 yards and a touchdown.
Okay, but Tua threw for 467.
Yes,
and
correct.
3 touchdowns.
Correct.
Not as many completions, but but way more.
Yeah,
yards.
but he's throwing the ball. Like, I would love to know what his average air yards was, but it had to be like close to, I don't know, close to 9 or 10, right? I don't know, but I'm sure he has some pretty high average air yards, I'm sure, because he was slinging it all over the place. It was just like last year. It wasn't like he was throwing the ball for 3 yards and they're running it for 10. I mean, it just wasn't the case.
And I'm a big believer in touchdown percentage, which is touchdowns per attempt. So first, it's like 45 attempts, but he had 3 touchdowns on 45 attempts, which is 6.7 percentage. That's good. That's about what he threw last year. So even though it's a lot of attempts, the touchdowns were still there. So he was efficient and effective. and just slinging the ball down the field. I mean, there's no check down. He doesn't know how to check down. They need to work on that. I was expecting that. I wanted to see that. What's crazy is he didn't need to. The offensive line did their job. So, I mean, they took everything that we discussed over the course of last week and just said, screw that. We're going to do it the way we know how to do it. And that's what they did.
I will say, hey, no. I will say something. I will say this in my defense. I said that Tua had been practicing against Staley/Fangio's defense all training camp, all preseason, learning where the holes were. And guess what? He found the holes. He found them today.
Yeah.
So we're going to get ready to call it soon, but I just want to point something out just because it's just funny to me. You know, y'all remember Noah Igbenogany?
Yeah, of course.
That we traded for Kelvin Joseph to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Guess who just scored a touchdown for the Dallas Cowboys?
Igbenogany did?
Noah Igbenogany.
Oh, that's hilarious. Good for him. Good for him. That's funny. Wait, I assume it was like a pick six?
He's done. Michael Clark's done. He's like, nope, I'm quitting at Noah Igbenogany.
It was a blocked field goal.
Oh, really? He was playing special teams?
He played special teams. He couldn't do that here.
Couldn't do that in Miami, but he shows up there and plays special teams.
He recovered it. It was blocked by somebody else.
Interesting.
Oh my God!
I will say I did have some PDSD, which is post Dolphins stress, whatever.
That's good.
Anyway,
that's good.
I think it was the opening kickoff of the second half, and I saw number 9 running down the field, and I was like, wait a minute, that's somebody different now.
Different number 9.
Kelvin Joseph.
Yeah, that's funny.
The Igbo redemption arc. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't dislike Noah Igbenogany as a human being. All the credit to the world to him for the work he's put in. I'm glad that he's finding success in Dallas. It wasn't happening here. It just wasn't.
No.
But who knows? Maybe that was his true calling all along, and we never just let him have the chance. Maybe he's meant to be a special teams ace. Who knows?
And I also like to say that we didn't get a test of what our special teams would look like because both. I mean, it must have been like that dome or something, or that field, because both kickers were just kicking it into the back of the end zone every single time, and there was only, I think we punt. Did we even punt once? We punted one time.
Jake, by the way,
I think they punted twice.
Was that punt short, or was I just imagining things?
Oh, the one out of the back of the end zone.
Bailey.
I didn't even notice, honestly. Wasn't paying attention to it.
A 33-yard punt?
38.
It wasn't great.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't a great punt. Where's Michael Kirk?
Yeah.
All righty. So, any final thoughts? Because, I mean, I can't imagine that the way that this game ended, the way that, like, where were you guys? Like, were you just at home watching the game? Were you guys, like, where were you guys celebrating? I know you guys were somewhere.
I was in a hospital parking lot just waiting for the inevitable.
Is everything okay? Because you said hospital. Now I have to.
Oh, I was just preparing for the worst, in the Dolphins game, just so I could be accessible in case I had some sort of cardiac.
Oh, my God. You had a stroke.
Nice.
Paris Stevens wants to talk about the linebackers. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about the linebackers.
Sorry. Yeah. Well,
I guess I don't have a lot to say about it other than I was a little bit thrown off by the snap counts between the linebackers.
Andrew Van Ginkel was on the field a lot.
Yeah, it felt like Andrew Van Ginkel was the starter over David Long.
yeah, but he did. But Van Ginkel played pretty well though. He made some plays.
No, he certainly did, but it just struck me as odd. That's all.
I know that Jerome Baker kind of tripped over himself a couple of times. That was a little, Jerome Baker, I don't think he's his best role. I still believe this. His best role is as a pass rushing linebacker. That's what he's best at. He can go shoot the gap and he can get to the quarterback. If you ask him to do other things, well, I mean, be prepared for lapses. Like in zone, I don't like Jerome Baker in zone. I really don't. There were a couple of times, and by the way, as far as linebackers, why was David Long Jr. covering Keenan Allen one-on-one?
I was just about to ask that question. That was I think that was just a mess up. You didn't see that later on. It wasn't like something they were constantly doing. I have a feeling that was just some kind of they didn't have the right defense called for the lineup for the offense or something like that. Because that is not something you would ever want ever.
Yeah. Also, if we're going to nitpick on stuff, did it feel like to you guys that the Chargers were a lot faster getting their plays in than the Dolphins were again? Like I was starting to lose count of how many times I was saying, "Snap the football, please."
In the second half, maybe. In the first half, they were good about it.
No, I didn't really notice much of that. I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't sweating that. I think that was an issue more with when the backup was on, especially Skylar Thompson last year. I don't think that was really an issue with Tua. I didn't notice a whole lot of it.
They had one play in the fourth quarter, I believe, where the snap. It was one of those where the ref looked at the clock and the ball was being snapped, so right at it. But otherwise, I think it was typical.
Yeah, I didn't.
And the Chargers went up tempo as well.
It's like typical for me is not good with this offense. I don't want typical.
Well, I mean, when I say typical, I mean I think it's typical in the sense of I don't think it was like the calls were coming in late. They were breaking the huddle and taking their time and doing whatever pre-snap. So it wasn't a situation where like there was one time I think they called a timeout where guys were running around and things weren't going the way they wanted it to. But otherwise, for the most part, it's what you would typically see. And as far as the Chargers, I think they just went up tempo a lot. They would run to the line of scrimmage, and they even said so on the broadcast about they're trying to catch Miami in certain personnel groupings, so they can't substitute out. Not that it would have mattered because they were going to run the ball over us anyway. But so I think it's where we saw them play a little faster than Miami did, but I don't think it's an issue.
Fair enough. And for Parrish saying Long can't cover, yes, I agree. David Long cannot cover wide receivers.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to say that exact same thing, but I was just going to leave it be. Thank you for saying that.
It's like what linebacker is supposed to cover wide receivers? Like Isaiah Simmons, that's the only linebacker I can think of that you would even try to do that.
If you think about, and you're talking about Andrew Van Ginkel, he is a bigger bodied guy. He's more of an edge player. He's probably closer to 250. He's the biggest guy that would play as a stack linebacker. So I think they had him in there playing a lot of snaps. And it'll be interesting to see when the snap counts come out, simply because they were running the ball so well, they needed a bigger body in there. And Miami doesn't have a bigger body at linebacker. I think Tyndall is the biggest guy who's pure stack linebacker, and he's listed at like maybe 240. So they were running the ball.
We miss a Landon Roberts?
Well, I mean, when the team
certain situations, yes.
Yeah.
But.
So I mean, he would have been very useful today because he's going to light up Eckler and Kelly and whoever else a couple of times and knock them back. It just seemed like that they would get the ball, and they had to have, of all the 200 yards rushing, 160 had to come after contact. It blew my mind. It was like they were getting hit and dragging guys for 6 yards. But yeah, I think that's why they were using Van Ginkels, because he's just a bigger dude and he's got some experience playing like that. So they're like, we're going to put you in there and you just make some
back
hits.
when he was in college.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good that you have that, but I think they need some more size against those running teams. But we'll see what they do. Reuben Foster's still out there.
I'm sure there's some what's his name? Chris on Twitter is going to be a different Chris, the other guy who's like been the Reuben Foster PR man for the entire off season. Somewhere he heard that he's like popping in saying Reuben Foster. To be fair, I said the same thing. I was like, let's give him a shot. What do you got to lose at this point? So, did Cam Smith even get a snap? I do not recall. I remember I saw Eli Apple a lot. I don't remember about Cam Smith.
Yeah, because
I saw Justin Bethel.
Another thing I could say in this is, I mean, knock on wood, it seemed to be a good day for lack of injuries.
Really, oh my God!
For both teams, honestly, for both teams, like did anybody even was anybody even down to where they had to come? I think maybe it happened.
Mike Williams happened to the Chargers.
Mike Williams,
but he
ended up coming back. We saw Tyreek. I thought for a second on a play, kind of had his
his
hand. On his
I was
back.
like, oh my
I
god,
was a little nervous, but that. I mean, feel like he caught after that. He caught for 2 touchdowns and like 170 or 130 yards. So apparently, whatever it was, it didn't affect him very much.
And Austin Eckler, you saw him a couple times kind of limping off the field, but I think I think that's because they ran him 70 times.
That's the Tyreek Hill syndrome. It's like Austin Eckler again. You talk about Tua and Tyreek being the whole Dolphins offense. Austin Eckler was the whole Chargers offense. He was wiped out after all that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Are we ready to call it a show here?
I'm ready.
Any final thoughts before we go?
I have one small thing regarding Tua, and it kind of harps on something that you said earlier, Lewis, about Tua had 5 carries for 5 yards there, and I love that he's throwing down the field. I love that he's looking to make plays down the field. But there were
carries for 5 yards. What?
Yeah, he had 5 rushes for 5 yards, and there was that one time on 3rd down, I believe it was 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, when he threw an incompletion into triple coverage over the middle of the field, when there was absolutely no one in front of him stepping up in the pocket. And that's something I'd love for him to incorporate. It is the smallest of nitpicky things, but if he's able to take what's there rushing, like what we saw Mahomes do on Thursday, how often Mahomes ran the ball. Now
I don't like what Mahomes did. I don't
much, but when you saw, some things break down, there's no one in front of him, ran for 6 yards, slid down. I'd like a little more of that and a little less throwing into triple coverage just to make that play. If he's able to incorporate that once every blue moon, he may be even more unstoppable than we saw him today.
No, absolutely. That's the one thing I've been harping on for a lot of times is that I wanted Tua to run the ball more. There was at least one. I think he was trying to get it to Craycraft, and he had open space. He could have gone for like 5 yards and
5,
slid.
6, 7 yards off of that. I thought that was the one time he definitely should have done it. Instead, he tried to throw the ball.
Yeah, that was one where I was like, nah, don't like that. So, and yes, Paris Stevens, who's the next opponent? It is the New England Patriots in New England. And, it's Sunday night football. Thank God I'm going to be off the next week. Oh my God. So 2-0, but yes, I firmly believe that Dolphins are going to definitely beat New England, but we'll talk about New England when it comes time to talk about
I'll be watching that game mostly drunk at the Hard Rock because I already have a little vacation plan, so I'll just happen to be there. So,
you're going to be at the Hard Rock Stadium or Hard Rock Hotel?
The hotel.
Okay, maybe we'll. I mean, I don't live that far away. Maybe we can.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, sit there.
Big guitar, right?
Yeah, yep, right there.
Let me know, man. Let me know. We'll do it.
Yeah,
we'll do it live.
You're welcome. I can't stop you. I'll be somewhere in public. Come on up.
I can't stop you from showing up.
I'll be at a restaurant or something, so I can't stop you if I didn't want you to come. Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome.
All right. So, and get home safe. Yeah. Ron, make sure you get home safe next week, and I am home safe for everybody. Everybody was so concerned. Like, Lewis better not be driving and doing the show at the same time. I promise. Once again, big thank you to my fiance, Holly. She is the MVP of this show at the end of the day. So, all right. Any final thoughts? Nope.
To MVP.
To MVP. Fins up, right? All right.
Yep.
Oh, that's the W? All right.
W.
So, once again, big thanks again to Biscayne Bay Brewing for hosting the 5 Reasons Sports Watch Party. It was an awesome time with everybody. I know that Andy was there, who's usually sometimes on these post-game shows, and he does other shows as well. It was an awesome time meeting everybody. So next time you guys need a place to go and check out the Biscayne Bay Brewing downtown Miami. That's the hangout spot as far as the 5 Reasons Sports Network is concerned. And of course, prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up. There was time to get that Dak Prescott free square. Now there is not, so I hope you guys took advantage of it. But there will be more discounts and there will be more free props as the season wears on, so make sure you're taking advantage of that. Again, prizepicks.com, promo code 5, $100 deposit equals $100 back straight from PrizePicks to your pocket. All right, that's going to be it. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will have more Dolphins content for you tomorrow. Fins Nation will be up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And then Pulse of Fins Nation on Tuesday. There's going to be another Fins Nation on Wednesday. Lots of Dolphins content coming your way. We will see you all for that next time.